48 psychometric tool and some applications in the education sector in Australia. The webinar today will be presented in a two-dimensional pitch, addressing challenges and opportunities for educators and students. And we will touch initially on introducing mental toughness as a concept, some of the origins, the MTQ-48 psychometric measure, some opportunities and how they fit in our current thinking. And then later on, we'll talk about some applications in the education sector. We'll share some case studies and we'll open the floor to some discussion and question and answer. Now, I would like to start by defining mental toughness. So what is mental toughness? It is basically a personality trait which determines in large part how people deal with challenge, stressors, and pressure, irrespective of prevailing circumstances. Now, this definition was actually developed by Dr. Peter Clough and Doug Stritachek from AQR International in 2012. And we will later on describe what it means and all the information related to the concept. Now, we define mental toughness, and then the question here is, what does it mean? So what mentally tough means for individuals? It is basically being comfortable with who you are as a person. It equips you with confidence, resilience, encourages you to be the best you can be, and also enables you to see challenges and opportunities rather than threats. Now, looking at all of these points, they actually touch on people's lives. They are also important in the occupational world, in the education sector, or any other industries. Now, why is it important? It is important because it explains up to 25% of the variation in attainment and aspirations. And this is something very interesting in the education sector, where some educational institutions, they actually suffer from decreased number of attainment and students getting good grades in their assessments. The second one is behavior. So students become more engaged, more positive. They will have that can-do attitude that everybody's talking about now. And I would like to also add that's not only for students, also for educators. Number three is well-being. People become more content rather than happy. It helps them better deal with stress and less bullying. The last one is change. They become more positive towards change and new opportunities. Now, looking at this table here, we will start talking about the origins of mental toughness. Now, what you see in bold is basically the work that Dr. Peter Clough and Earl have done in the United Kingdom around mental toughness. But the concept has started before with Dr. Susan Kobasa in the United States, when she spoke about it as hardness, when people have that ability to survive in adverse situations and preserve themselves. Later on in the 80s and 90s, some applications started in the occupational world with Dr. Jimler, who started actually doing some experiment around effort rather than ability for individuals to achieve their best. And then from Jim Collins, Good to Great, to Carol Dweck, and I'm sure so many of us heard of her work around mindset and the growth mindset. Angela Duckworth in 2007, Grit, and then I believe last year she also issued another book related to the same topic. Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, and Paul Tough, How Children Succeed. I will not dwell a lot on this slide because it's a lot of information, but just to give us some information of where the concept's coming from. Now, how does it fit in our current thinking in life? This is actually a very interesting question that people always ask. I wrote a post and I published on LinkedIn last year talking about the VUCA word. So basically that's a terminology that has been used in the United States, in the military, where some situations were very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And mainly that all started in the Gulf War and probably even before. So they wanted to actually understand these situations and how to actually address them when there are lots of risks and high stakes. Now, VUCA also started actually resonating in the occupational world, where organizations and governments started thinking of these situations during their own operations. Now, I'm also not sure if you guys have heard about the Rockefeller Foundation. They came up with this initiative a while ago about 100 resilient cities, and then each city would actually submit an application to be listed on their website. And there are lots of criteria to be nominated. Now, Sydney is part of the 100 resilient cities, and the city of Sydney has appointed Beck Dawson, which is Sydney's Chief Resilience Officer. So basically her role is to help government and private entities to increase their resilience in terms of organizational resilience, how to actually navigate through change, how to become more lean, to be more sustainable, and also help their employees and workforce to be more mentally tough and resilient, as people say, dealing with change and adversity and restructures. A few months ago, I was actually watching Lee Sales interviewing Quentin Bryce, the former Governor General of Australia. And then at the end of her interview on TV, she asked her, you've been in this position for the longest time, you work in the public sector, in the private sector. What is your main advice to the new generation? And then she said, build stores of resilience. So that actually resonated with all the work that I've been doing. And I wanted to actually put it there on the slide, just to put things in context. Now, moving on, I would like to actually start talking about mental toughness in the education sector, and by talking about challenges. Now, mental toughness is a concept related to the MTQ-48, which is the psychometric tool that I'm going to talk about later on. But people also refer to it as resilience, and that has become a massive challenge for individuals and organizations, mainly in turbulent, uncertain times. Specifically in the education sector. Now, we hear all the time the challenges on TV, the challenges facing education institution, NAPLAN tests, and all the other issues that we hear about. Education institutions and local governments have been highlighting the issue of teacher and student well-being, student attainment, teacher burnout, and the ability to cope with stress and change. Now, the next point I would like to touch on is, can we measure mental toughness? Now, it is so good talking about it, but the challenge was actually measuring it. And the good thing about this personality trait is that once you can measure it, you can actually fix it. You can develop it, you can implement some interventions. So this will actually lead to talking about the mental toughness questionnaire. Now, it is called MTQ-48, so mental toughness. Q means questionnaire, and 48 because it has 48 questions. And that psychometric tool was developed by Dr. Peter Clough, chair in applied psychology at Manchester Metropolitan University, and Doug Stertacek, managing director at AQR International. So AQR International are an organization that administers psychometric tests, and the MTQ-48 is one of them. Now, these are some facts related to the MTQ-48 psychometric tool. So basically, individuals receive a link to complete the test. It is available in 14 languages, as you guys can see. It takes approximately 8 to 10 minutes to complete. The test itself is valid, reliable, and user-friendly. And it does generate 3 instant reports. So the first one is a development report that you share with either the student or the educator. The coaching report is for licensed users to actually use that report to coach individuals on their professional development plan. And the assessment report, like any other psychometric tool, to make sure that all the results that you see as a coach are actually real. I would like to actually spend some time talking about this. I'm sure we've all been sent links to do psychometric tests during recruitment or any professional development. And personally, I sometimes try to actually answer the questions based on what is required, what is needed for the next step, what is required for the job. So people tend to actually move or bend the results a bit. So the assessment report is there to probe individuals when you see that or you feel that the results are not reflective of that individual. And the last point I would like to talk about will be distance traveled reports. So basically these reports, you can actually initiate them at a certain time where you've done the MTQ 48, you implemented interventions, and then 6 months after, you can compare results of an individual or a certain group. So it will give you a bell curve, and it will give you how that person actually worked on the results and whether they increased or decreased. Now, what you see in front of you here is mainly the first page of the report. And I like to call it a dashboard because it gives you a summary on the overall mental toughness. So that individual here, as you can see, scores 6 out of 10. And then the scales on the left-hand side, control, commitment, challenge, and confidence, each one will also have a score. As you can see, this result here is quite balanced because all the results are plus or minus 1 or 2 from the 5. The next page I would like to actually show you is a report page. This scale here is challenge, so that individual scored 5. The first block of text that you guys can see is a small, these are small paragraphs explaining the score of 5 under challenge, and then you can also see development suggestions. So the report is very user-friendly, and the language is very easy to understand. So you can use it for university students, you can use it also for high school students. Now, moving on, I would like to talk about the 4 scales of mental toughness and what we have seen before in that report. Now, before I move on, I would like to call actually mental toughness as a mindset. It is actually a mindset that we find in the, it's a quality that we find in the minds of winners. So let me start by control. So control is one aspect of the MTQ 48, and it has 2 subscales. The first one is life control, which means people who actually score good on that specific scale, they believe they can do things, they believe they can achieve them. And at the same time, they also have emotion control. They can keep their emotions in check when doing things. An easy way to describe control under mental toughness would be our can-do attitude. It also has a good correlation with emotional intelligence because it explains how some individuals can get on and achieve things as compared to others while keeping emotions in check. The next one is commitment. Now, commitment has 2 subscales: goal setting, the extent to which you can actually promise yourself and others that you will achieve your goals. But not only that, taking an active step to doing whatever it takes through your hard work to deliver it. And here there's a good correlation between hard work and ability. We all know that some individuals will not actually do certain things or activities unless they know they have the ability to do them. People who are mentally tough and score high on commitment, they will do what it takes to deliver it, which means they will practice, they will work hard, and then they will be able to achieve at least 60, 70, or 80% of what they ought to actually achieve. Control and commitment under the MTQ 48 is what we refer to as resilience, which is our ability to deal with adverse situations. And if you look at control and commitment, this is basically the passive component of mental toughness, which Susan Kobasa spoke about in the 70s, which is something that we called hardiness and grit. How do you survive when there's adversity, when you are dealing with difficult situations? Now, the next point is challenge. So this is the 3rd scale of mental toughness. And this is quite interesting in the education sector, because we know that as educators, and I'm one of them, sometimes I don't want to take risk to learn something new because probably I'm set in my own ways. So this is what we call, what we refer to as drive. The ability to push back on boundaries, embrace change, dealing with adversity as an opportunity rather than a challenge, and also learning from experiences. People who score high on challenge, they always tell themselves that my problems will make me stronger. I will learn from them. Setbacks make me a better person. So they like to actually cherish new situations and challenges and learn from their own experiences. Also working with the concept, I've also noticed that usually individuals who score high on challenge, they are the ones who always raise their hands and volunteer when there's a new opportunity to be implemented in the workplace. The last one is confidence. So confidence is basically our self-belief, our confidence in our own abilities. I believe I have the ability to do it, and interpersonal confidence. Interpersonal confidence is basically about collaboration, having that confidence in engaging in difficult conversations, talking to a stranger, at the same time raising your hands and voicing your opinion, whether in a meeting or maybe in a classroom, and also at the same time influencing others. So this is basically confidence. Now, I would like to give you an example about confidence and abilities. Some individuals have the abilities, like one of my best friends, but she would never actually apply for the next role because she doesn't believe in her own abilities. She always feels that I'm still missing something, although she knows how to do it. She has the knowledge, she has the skills, but she doesn't trust herself. So I'm just going to leave this for maybe a few minutes for everybody to look at, and I will recap. So the fourth case of mental toughness are control. This is our can-do attitude. How much influence I can exert over my life and circumstances to achieve things. Can I keep my emotions in check when there are problems happening around me, when maybe there's something going on in my personal life, or maybe my students are giving me a hard time in the classroom. So how do I maintain my decorum to still control my emotions and deliver what I need to deliver? The second one is commitment. Commitment is basically our ability to promise ourselves things, to set goals, smart objectives, but not only that, through our hard work, how we can achieve them. We can also refer to commitment as stickability, which means how much do you stick to your own promises, to the goals that you set to yourself and to others. Challenge, as a quick recap, is our ability to take risk, to enjoy challenging situations, to learn from our experience, to learn from setbacks. And this is also related to our reflection. I'm sure we always use reflection in post-assessment maybe, or in some activities in the classroom where students actually learn from each other. They reflect on their own experiences and they start drawing their own conclusion through their metacognition, where they come up with their own generalization. This is my rule about what I've learned today. And this is how I will implement it in my personal life, in my assessment, in the workplace. And the last one is confidence. So confidence is basically our self-belief, as I mentioned before. How much do I trust my own abilities? Do I have enough or what it takes to do something? And my interpersonal confidence, which is related to collaboration, self-confidence in terms of influencing others, cherishing new situations. Now, the next point I would like to talk about is the fixed versus growth mindset, or what we call flexible mindset. This is actually what Professor Carol Dweck spoke about in detail, mainly in the education sector. If we look at the growth mindset on the left-hand side, all of these points actually correlate with the mental toughness concept. For example, failure is an opportunity to grow. So this is the challenge component. I can learn to do anything I want. And this is related not only to my abilities, but it could be to my effort, to working hard. Challenges help me grow as an individual. It's all about effort and attitude. If you have a positive attitude, you have that can-do attitude, it's not only about your own abilities. You will give it a go maybe you will fail the first time. The second time, you become a better person at doing it. Feedback is constructive. This is actually very interesting because we usually work with individuals from different cultural backgrounds where feedback for them, they see feedback as not a constructive mechanism to learn, and they become a bit more argumentative about receiving feedback. So usually individuals that are mentally tough, they understand where they are, and because they know that they can learn from their experience and they have that interpersonal confidence with others, they are more open to receiving feedback. Also, they get inspired by their own success and the success of others, and they are not shy at trying new things. I was working at an education institutions overseas for Emirates Airlines Training College, and basically we adopted Professor Dweck's flexible mindset where we started using the power of yet when we deliver feedback or we tell someone that you are not competent in a certain assessment. Instead of saying not competent, we add the word yet to it. So you are not competent yet. And that will actually open somebody's mind. Yes, now I'm not competent, but there's a yet next to it, which means the question is, what can I do to become competent now? So individuals become more open at receiving feedback. So just a quick recap. Mental toughness is resilience, which is control and commitment. And this is our ability to survive in our changing world, in a VUCA world where things are always volatile, uncertain. And the C stands for confidence and challenge. And this is our ability to thrive. Now, before I actually move on to the next bit, I would like to emphasize on these two aspects of mental toughness, survival and our thriving mechanisms. This is not actually something new. This is, I would like to actually say that these two qualities have been there since the beginning of humanity, since the Ice Age, if you want to call it. Awesome. So let's have a look at student dimensions and employability skills. So basically, when I started talking about this webinar, I said we will have a two-dimensional approach. So the first approach will be the student's dimension. Now, what does mental toughness mean in the education sector? I would like to start by employability skills. I recently stumbled upon this report by Deloitte Access Economics, and they've actually commissioned Deakin Co. in May 2017 to come up with this report highlighting soft skills for business success. And the source of the information was also from the World Economic Forum 2015. So as you guys can see, these are it's a quite recent study. And these are the 21st skills centuries required for students. So basically they say we need foundational literacies. Now these foundational literacies are related to literacy and numeracy skills. Scientific literacy could be related to the fields of study. Somebody studying IT, accounting, medicine, ICT, using a laptop, using computer, using technology. Financial literacy, because we know that millennials and Generation Y, those individuals, they like to actually become entrepreneurs. So they need to know how to run their own business in the future. And also cultural and civic literacy. Our society has become more and more diverse and multicultural, and they've actually realized that this is a skill they need as a core skill for everyday tasks. The ones you see on the left-hand side, they are competencies or soft skills related to creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking and problem solving. Now, the most interesting ones that I would actually like to focus on are the character qualities, how students approach their changing environment. And if you guys can look at these, they are all active components of mental toughness, and I've actually circled them. So curiosity, what happens to me if there is a new situation? Am I curious enough to go and challenge myself to learn from it? Initiative, do I take initiative to solve my own problem? Persistence and grit. Adaptability in changing environments. Leadership, can I assume leadership, although maybe I've never been in that situation before? Do I have enough confidence to take a leadership role? Maybe in my classroom, in charge of a project, social and cultural awareness. This is also related to collaboration on the left-hand side. Am I aware of my own abilities? Am I confident enough to actually engage in a conversation, maybe in new environments? The second point under the employability skills, I was also doing some research before when I was actually designing the webinar. And soft skills are now included alongside technical skills. So we always speak about hardware and software. So the software skills that the Australian curriculum, mainly from the Department of Education and Training Victoria 2016, they started highlighting IT capabilities or ICT capabilities, critical and creative thinking, ethical understanding, what is right, what is wrong, operating in a multicultural environment, intercultural understanding, personal and social capability. So if you look at these, you can actually see how they map with the 4 scales of mental toughness. So do I have enough critical thinking to challenge these situations? Do I have enough challenge to actually learn from my own experience? I have a problem now. What is the best approach to actually analyze it, draw conclusions? How can I control my emotions to make sure my decision-making process is very objective? Intercultural understanding, you could map it with confidence, and personal and social capability, confidence and commitment. The last point I would like to talk about from the student dimension is career advancement. We all know that all our students, they want to all become very successful in their career. They want to not only get a job through their employability skills, but they want to retain the job, and they want to advance in it. They want to get promoted. There was a massive study commissioned also by Deloitte, and according to their human capital partner, Kate McDonald, she actually came up with the conclusion after the research and the study that when they designed their consulting performance framework and reflected on things that they set high performance at any level, it came down to the soft skills, not the technical skills. And basically these are listed under building relationships based on empathy, having intercultural curiosity, intellectual curiosity. How can I learn something new here? There's a routine in my position. Is that enough? How can I challenge myself to be a better person, to become the next manager, the next star in my team? Also, it could be related to being comfortable with ambiguity and new experiences. We know that Deloitte, they do a lot of work in the financial industry. And after the GFC 2008, there's always that uncertainty. Everything's changing all the time. Uncertainties in the wars that are happening around the world at the moment, and the political instability. Demonstrating flexibility when things change, developing self and others, having strong communication skills, and seeking to collaborate. So basically, they have noticed that all their new leaders in their assessment centers or in their interviews, they display these specific skills. And as you can see now, they're all mapped with the 4 scales of mental toughness. I will not spend much time explaining each one of them, but as you can see, they all map with the 4 scales of mental toughness. All right, now the next point would be mental toughness in the education sector. So here I would like to actually address the teacher's dimension. So before we spoke about the student's dimension, attainment, employability skills, getting a job, what are the soft skills required for the 21st century? How do I use it in career advancement according to Deloitte study? Now I would like to talk about the teacher's dimension. I attended the UECA Spirit Fest this year, and I met so many educators who spoke about qualities that teachers require to actually help them become more successful in what they do. And I came across this study about characteristics of effective teacher leaders. And this study was actually done by Danielson in 2008. And as you can see on the right-hand side, in this table, I've actually mapped it with the 4 scales of mental toughness. So I would like to go to the first one, which is control. According to Danielson's, an effective teacher leader reflects on their own experience. So they are in control of their circumstances. They are in control of their classroom experience, the dynamics. They have a sense of empowerment because they are the ones who are leading that session. They understand the micropolitics of the school system and demonstrate significant teaching experience, which means they can also keep their emotions in check when they are running a session, when they have challenging students. What do I do now? Do I lose my emotions? Do I actually crack down on the pressure? Or do I maintain my decorum? And then I will make sure that I will not affect the student experience of the rest of the classroom or the other students. The second point I would like to touch on is commitment. So as you can see, according to Danielson, he speaks about expertise in their field and respect for their own instructional skills. Now, I'm sure we all speak about professional development of educators. Also, those people need to demonstrate high levels of instructional expertise and are achievement and learning orientated. Now, I know from my own experience, between breaks or during the lunch break, I go and I buy a sandwich, I toast it somewhere, and then all these conversations that happen in the trainer's room or the teacher's room or in the kitchen, where we start sharing best practice. This is basically our natural commitment as an educator because we care for our students. We care for those people in the classroom. We want to make sure they have higher attainment. So we start actually comparing, how did you go with this activity? How did you approach that issue? I'm facing this challenge with this specific aspect in the teaching. So this is basically our commitment for our own professional development to create communities of best practice. That's how I call it. Although we are tired, we probably need to go for a walk, but we stay in the trainer's room. We want to learn from each other. We want to make sure that in the next session, I do things in a different way to make sure that I enhance the experience of my students. So I would like to move on to the other characteristics according to Danielson's. So challenge, on the challenge, he speaks about enthusiasm, remaining positive in new situations, willingness to try new ideas. One of my co-trainers told me last time, we were talking about cross-cultural communication. We had an assessment on that day. We had to talk about Goethe Hofstede's cultural dimensions, other cultural dimensions, power distance, gender, very complicated concepts. It blows students' minds away. But then it's a challenge for us. We had a discussion during the lunch break, and then we all decided to try a new way of one of our co-trainers to actually use visual aids, allow students to work on their own posters around cultural dimensions. And funny enough, 80% of our students achieved competent results in their assessment from their first attempt. We used to get actually 60% because we had to go through the results again. Now, the third one on the challenge is basically allowing yourself to lead as someone who tried a new initiative and also be led by others, being humble enough to actually allow another person to actually show you something new. I would like to also do a rumor buster here. Now, sometimes people think that individuals who are very mentally tough, they don't want to learn from others, but actually they are very aware of their emotions and their abilities. And although they like high challenge, but because of high level of emotional intelligence, they can relate to others. So they can actually tune it down a bit when they feel they need to learn, when they feel they can be led by others to try something new. The last one is confidence. So basically, Danielson speaks about self-confidence, collaboration with others. They are respected by peers and respect for others. They have excellent interpersonal skills, ability to influence others. And when I say others, not only colleagues, but also influencing students. Every time I speak to my co-trainers or a new trainer that somebody actually hires, we always ask the question, why are we here actually? Because we like to influence new generations. We want to share with them our experience. We want them to actually excel in their lives. And the last one is demonstrating significant teaching experience. So again, how confident am I as a person or as an educator to display that? So again, how much do I trust my own abilities? Some of us are really good at what we do, but then maybe we're not comfortable enough to actually deliver it in the classroom. Okay, so I'm going to leave this for maybe a few seconds. And I would like to move on to talk about SPARC Consulting project experience in Australia. So in February 2017, I started having actually before that, I started having chats with the Center for English Teaching at the University of Sydney. And basically it was all a coincidence. I was having a chat with a friend of mine who actually is the manager there. And I was telling him about all the work I was doing around mental toughness. And then he also shared with me the work that he was doing around student engagement. And then the whole conversation evolved around the missing link. How do we actually test the student engagement? And then we started talking about, again, having a two-dimensional approach to implementing some mental toughness initiatives at the University of Sydney, mainly in the Center for English Teaching. So basically we had two initiatives. The first one is we started in February by actually delivering a mental toughness professional development workshop for the CET core team members. And basically what happened there is we spoke about mental toughness as a concept. So basically a small introduction that I did with you earlier on. How does it fit in our life, education sector, the Center for English Teaching? We mapped all the 4 C's with the competencies of their staff and what they're looking on in their students, and mainly the English teaching component. Then later on, we explained the 4 C's of mental toughness, the concept, what it means, the MTQ 48 questionnaire. But then what happened is we started brainstorming the touch points of the student experience and where we can actually implement mental toughness initiatives. Who will be involved? Is it only the teachers, director of studies, admin and support staff, the counselors, for those students who require more assistance, maybe that are facing challenges in their studies? We highlighted a few initiatives from the brainstorming activities, and also how it fits in the student engagement framework that they also had, they started working on. And at the end of the day, each of the staff members of the CET came up with their own action plan around their own MTQ 48 results. So basically, at the end of the day, it was not only, let's see how it fits in our school, how it fits in the CET, but also what's in it for me as an educator. So they took with them their own mental toughness development plan. The second component is actually a pilot program in CET's engagement framework. So basically, we will be probably implementing a pilot program around the 3 dimensions that you can see on the screen of student engagement. So basically, they have actually decided that student engagement should be 3-dimensional. First one on the behavioral level, how to display positive behavior in the classroom, better at managing their work-life balance. We know that most of our students probably are international students. How to remain focused, better deal with change and new situations. The second aspect is emotional. Are they aware of their emotions? They are away from their families, their countries. Maybe they're going through some problems at their age. Are they able to control them in the classroom before an exam? So also it will help them increase higher levels of emotional intelligence, their interrelationship with their own peers. And the last one is on a cognitive level. Are they committed to achieving their results and higher attainment? So on the left-hand side, as you can see, these are the 3 dimensions for student engagement at the University of Sydney Centre for English Teaching. And on the right-hand side, they were mapped to the mental toughness, MTQ 48 and the concept. And the modes of engagement, they've decided they will do it on an individual level. As a person, how can I become more positive? How can I have a better behavior in the classroom? How can I deal with other students? How can I learn from them? How can I keep my emotions in check? How can I actually manage my own studies through my control? Also on a collaborative level, my interpersonal confidence, working with peers on a project, and leadership. And what we will do also later on is, initially we will test those individuals. We will have a pilot of students at risk, the leaders, and another sample group. So we'll have 3 groups to test. We will ask them to fill in, to go through the MTQ 48. We will have all the initiatives in between to develop their mental toughness. And then we will actually do the testing 6 months after or after 1 year. And then we will have the distance traveled report where we will check how did they actually improve. And that will give us some return on investment on the implemented initiatives. Another project that I actually delivered in May 2017, basically at TAFE New South Wales, part of their Tasting Success program. So Tasting Success is basically under their travel, hospitality, and culinary section. And it was a 3 hours mental toughness development workshop for their cookery students. We know that students who work in that field, they work under hard pressure. They are working to supporting their studies, but at the same time, they have long hours practicing in the kitchen. High pressure, high demand, lots of soft skills and hard skills to study. So basically, we allowed those students to attend the workshop. They did the testing before, and they all left with a mental toughness development program. It was very individual. I was also a guest speaker, did some staff coaching and mental toughness development workshops at ICC, International Convention Centre in Sydney, and with the Sydney Cricket Ground and Trust. We had a mental toughness development workshop for their leaders. We all know they're going through a lot of restructure now. They are expanding their stadiums everywhere across Sydney, so they had to benefit from this type of program. Now, the last point I would like to touch on is some case studies. So the MTQ 48 generated from the United Kingdom, and they did a lot of research and case studies in the Scottish education sector. So basically, their initiatives enhanced employability skills, better performance in exams, and overall attainment. Also, students became more relaxed before exams. So that reduced their stress levels. They started implementing some mindfulness activities before exams, and that helped students relax before assessment. Decrease in dropouts, 7% improvement in retention, positive classroom behavior, better attendance and engagement, and increased confidence. So those students became less prone to bullying. So they were able actually to stand their ground in bullying situations. Now, the total cost per college in the Scottish education sector was around £4,000, which is equivalent to $6,650. And the net beneficial financial benefit to the college was $183,000. Now, that was mainly from improvement in retention, which means those students who were actually part of these mental toughness development programs, they were retained, they did not drop out, and because of that, the college retained all their fees, and that was approximately $183,000. Other educational institutions in the UK, I did not name them because it's more than one, but basically these studies were around return on investment. I know that professional development could be a burden for some education institutions everywhere in the world. Also in Australia, we always wait for government funding or from the private sector. And I always ask that question, what is your return on investment? So in the United Kingdom, return on investment was based on social impact bonds and measurable outcomes. For example, attendance would increase from 68 to 90%. That's actually a huge increase. Increased number in employment within 6 months. So those students will actually have the employability skills they need to get a job, to retain a job, and also to be promoted. Increased number in attaining qualifications. So instead of actually repeating certain subjects, a higher number of students will actually get their qualification within the first attempt. PricewaterhouseCoopers in the United Kingdom offered funds valued at £800,000, which is $1.6 million Australian, due to the fact that they used the MTQ48, which was evidence-based, and it was a scientific approach. Because PricewaterhouseCoopers said, we will give you the money, but show us the return on investment. How do you measure success? So basically, they used the distance traveled reports before, during, and after. They would be able to measure attendance. They would be able to measure the number of students who were getting these jobs, retaining the jobs. And then the UK government afterwards approved funds for more than $4.8 million due to the social impact and life skills acquired. Now, this $4.8 million was not only for one education institution, but it was a collaboration of more than one in one specific area where students were coming from deprived backgrounds. Now, what is the next step? So what is the way forward? What are the opportunities? So for educators, we speak about mental toughness professional development programs. So education institutions can actually implement mental toughness professional development programs, similar to the one I have delivered at the University of Sydney, where educators will be sent a link to go through the MTQ8 questionnaire. They will get their results during the workshop. They will learn about some interventions and personal qualities and skills they can do to improve their 4 scales. It could also be done as a coaching program, not only, for example, for massive individuals, but for people at risk. It could also be used in recruitment. So maybe as an education institution, you would like to actually use MTQ8 to recruit mentally tough individuals, people who have probably higher levels of commitment, higher level of control, emotional intelligence. It could also be used in recruitment assessment centers. I have actually delivered and designed assessment centers where all the competencies of educators or new employees were mapped with the MTQ48, and all the activities in the assessment center were around that specific, the 4 scales. MTQ48 in career development. I'm about to go for my promotion. Maybe in that new position, I require these certain skills that could also be mapped to MTQ48. Organization change and restructure. We all know that all organizations, mainly education institutions, they go through restructures all the time. If they are in the public sector, they always do it because the government probably has less funding. They need to change job descriptions. So it is actually a good tool to help individuals navigate through change. And also could be part of leadership development on a personal level. And the last dimension is for students. So a way forward and opportunities would be mental toughness and student engagement frameworks. So you can come up with one that is similar to the Center for English Teaching, or we can actually help education institutions with understanding if they have current engagement framework for their students, or maybe they have some competencies they look for. We can map it with the MTQ48, and then we can come up with some strategies or frameworks for them. Mental toughness development initiatives for students. We can actually have some testing. We can come up with workbooks, reflective journals. In the United Kingdom, there is one MTQ48 booklet called You Can Pass or You Can Do It, where students use it as a reflective journal to fill in their understanding about the 4Cs, their results, what are some interventions they can actually implement, what are their strategic objectives, how many jobs they need to apply for, what are the exams they need to sit. So it becomes actually a powerful tool and a reflective journal for them to have that self-study, to be in charge of their own education. So I'll leave these for a few seconds if you guys would like to have a look at them. And this is basically the end of the webinar. I believe we finished early, but I would like to actually open the floor for questions. And if you have any questions, please address them to Sophie. She will be moderating the questions, and we will try to answer as many as we can before the end of the seminar.
Great, thank you. So yeah, if you do have any questions, please type them into the chat box. Okay, someone had a question about the touch points that you described, that you came up with the example from Sydney University, and they were wondering which touch points you identified for students where mental toughness initiatives could be implemented.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good question. So according to the brainstorming, I'm referring to the brainstorming session we had with the CET team, they actually identified touch points from their student induction and orientation. So basically, the staff or the support staff or the educators who were engaged in delivering induction, they would identify those students at risk. They would probably be able to identify some leaders, some students who actually show more confidence. So that would be one touch point. The second touch point would be through the studies, which is the classroom. In that touch point, what we have actually identified is the English teachers there would actually go through mental toughness development programs. They will understand the concept and some of the mindfulness activities, interventions, how to create enhanced attention control, focus in the students, how to manage emotions. So all of these are related to positive psychology. And the teacher every day will go through 5 to 10 minutes to actually do these small activities to actually enhance these skills, which are mapped through the 4 scales of mental toughness. We also identified another touch point before the assessments. One touch point was with the counselors. Some students will go to the teacher or will go to reception and say, look, I cannot do this assessment. They ask them why. I'm facing some issues at home. I have to go back. There is this issue going on in my life. I'm sick. I have to go to the hospital, etc. And those students will be referred to the counselors or psychologists. So basically, those counselors will also be trained on how to use the MTQ-48. They will use the tool and the report to help those students enhance these 4 scales. For example, maybe they need to be able to manage their emotions a bit more. So they will look at the interventions that the report will suggest, and they will help the student actually enhance them. The second one is, one of the other touch points would be during some project work. So they will identify the leaders in that specific group, the collaboration level, interpersonal confidence, their ability to learn from each other. And the most interesting part at the CET is they created an application where students, every time they go to an event, they would be able to actually use the app to, as if like they're clocking in and clocking out. They would check their engagement, how many activities they engage in, how many programs or activities they attend, how much time they spend there. Do they collaborate with the other students? And they would be able to test the percentage of engagement during these specific activities by actually having a dashboard and checking the attendance in the extracurricular or co-curricular activities. The last touch point would be when they actually test the students again at the end of that journey or at the end of the pilot, and they will check the distance traveled report, and they will celebrate success with the students. That was your score under mental toughness. This is how you increased. And basically, it's actually beyond, I mean, for those students, it will be beyond their studies. These are life skills that they will acquire, and they will actually really appreciate that the education institution will be investing in them in this regard.
Yeah.
So I hope it's a very elaborate answer, but I hope it actually gave some insight of what they've tried to implement and the touch points they came up with.
Yeah, no, that was very clear. Thank you. There's one more question. Someone has said, as a DOS, what can I do to help teachers in my staff room develop resilience and mental toughness?
That's also a very good question. For that specific aspect, we have very short workshops. I know educators, they don't have time to attend the full day seminar or a workshop. So basically, it could be a 2.5 hours to 3 hour session where individuals, I mean, educators, they actually come together, they attend that workshop, they understand the concept, how it fits in their own school, and then they will go through the MTQ48 testing. It takes 8 minutes before. We go through the interventions, how to develop these scales, and then each person will leave with their own action plan. Now, that action plan is not an action plan of the MTQ48. What I usually do is, in collaboration with the director of studies, I get probably some job descriptions, competency framework, and I map it with the MTQ48. So it becomes very customized. And directors of studies can actually use these reports and action plans with the individual to map it with their own professional development at that specific school or education institution. There will be lots of conversations that happen in between where trainers or educators, they help each other's as peers. So they take control of their own professional development. They become in charge of it. And also they have these conversations with the director of studies. This approach is very beneficial because we know that the traditional approach is, I mean, this is what I would also suggest. Traditional approach is beginning of the year, we set your objectives. We have your mid-year performance appraisal meeting. We all feel it's very dreadful because it takes time. I don't want to address these. I prefer to do something else. How is this going to affect my promotion, my salary increment, and then at the end of the year? And usually you forget all these good things that you've done. Now, following that approach with the mental toughness and these one-on-one conversations, they become more timely and they become more effective. And I call them small improvements. So basically, everybody understands the same language. Director of studies understands the same language. And everybody increases their performance along the way. And this is what we like to also see with our students.
Okay, great. Someone's actually just sent through a comment on the same topic, and they've said, for teachers to create the right environment for transformative learning, they need to nourish their own growth and capacity for creativity, mindfulness, and mental toughness.
Yeah, thank you. So is that a question or it's just a comment?
It's just a comment, yeah, I think in support of what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I actually really appreciate this. So if you go back to the 4 scales of mental toughness, they correlate a lot with positive psychology, mindfulness, creating an environment where individuals become more creative. If you are in control of your situation, circumstances, you keep your emotions in check, you cherish new situations, straight away, going back to that comment, people become more creative. The environment becomes more transformational, and then everybody can excel more in their position. Yeah, that's a very good comment. Thank you.
Great. All right. Well, I think we'll stop there. It's time to finish. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending, and also thank you to our presenter. It was fascinating to hear about not only mental toughness from the perspective of students but teachers, but also some of the results in education that that you've seen and those examples that you gave us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sophie, and thanks everyone for being here today in the afternoon. I'm sure if you have any questions, you can go to the website or you can drop me an email. That would be great, actually. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
And have a nice afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.